According to Statistics Canada, small and medium-sized enterprises play an essential role in employing Canadians across the country. On the provincial level, these small and medium-sized enterprises account for 94% of private sector employment in Newfoundland and 93.9% in PEI. This percentage is lowest in Ontario and Quebec at 88.3% and 87.4% respectively. Total private sector employment in Ontario and Quebec amounts to 7,426,100 jobs, which represents more than 60% of all Canadian private sector employment. The problem with this analysis is that only about 16% of private sector employment can be tied to medium-sized business. About 75% of private sector employment is provided by small business alone. It's clear that Statistics Canada takes a somewhat disparaging view of what they call micro-businesses. But collectively, the self-employed and these so-called micro-businesses account for about 24% of private sector employment. In case you missed it, the self-employed alone account for more employment than Statistics Canada's much-loved medium-sized business category. BC Stats has a much better and clearer picture of the real economy in Canada. Their analysis is based on the same data. They just interpret it more effectively. BC Stats doesn't even have a category for medium-sized business. Businesses with fewer than 50 staff are considered small. Those with 50 or more are just considered large.
In this slide I have broken down the number of Canadian businesses in 2018, from data provided by Statistics Canada. However, I had to interpolate a little, using BC Stats aggregations by number of employees by firm. In particular, I used BC Stats' more detailed breakdowns of businesses with between 1 and 49 employees. Essentially, I distributed the larger number of categories developed in BC, assuming that the distribution between these categories should remain relatively constant across Canada. For many statistical agencies, and often for academics, self-employment is considered as something less than employment. From our perspective though, self-employment is very common, representing about 22% of private sector employment in 2018, and it should be taken seriously. Thankfully, BC Stats places more importance on the self-employed than Statistics Canada. Note that, according to BC Stats analysis pictured here, with their more realistic view of large businesses, small firms with fewer than 50 employees account for more than half of private sector employment. In this slide we include the self-employed as one category of employer. Looked at this way, the self-employed working without staff are the largest single employer category. They employ more Canadians than any other category. They employ as many people as Canada's large and medium-sized businesses, combined.
The Small Business Analysts Society of Canada was founded in October of 2020 with a mission to reimagine the way that accountants learn their trade, and how they can best practice it in a way to meet the real needs of employers and clients in Canada's small business sector. To do this effectively, we needed to start by understanding who our employers and clients are, what they use accountants for, and which services they value. In short, we needed to understand the market for our services. We wanted to fine-tune our training to deliver those services more effectively. In the words of Jeff Bezos, one of the most successful entrepreneurs of our time.
There are two ways to extend a business. Take inventory of what you're good at and extend out from your skills. Or determine what your customers need and work backward, even if it requires learning new skills. Kindle is an example of working backward.
We decided to do both. We did it by borrowing shamelessly from concepts and strategies developed in the crucible of Silicon Valley startup culture by some of our most successful venture capitalists. Our efforts were informed by concepts like product market fit and the lean startup methodology. Then we went back further to the 1960s and transplanted legendary aircraft engineer Kelly Johnson's KISS principle, keep it simple stupid, into our ethos as members of the small business community that dominate Canada's economy. We didn't expect to magically transform millions of very small lifestyle businesses into unicorns or even growth businesses. What we wanted was to transform the Canadian business ecosystem into a place where policymakers, the higher education industry, professional regulators, and professionals themselves could see stakeholders for who they really are.